US sailors and service members deployed for the Iran war are reportedly facing an extended period at sea and overseas. One family account describes a severe sewage backup aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, claiming that human waste overflowed across restroom floors. Reports from relatives and sailors describe recurring plumbing problems and broken toilets aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. The complaints are not limited to the USS Abraham Lincoln, with families reporting poor conditions affecting personnel on other ships and at overseas Middle East postings. As family accounts draw wider attention to the human cost of long deployments, the Pentagon and US military leadership face growing pressure to explain how they are protecting troop welfare. Reports have emerged of difficult living conditions across several US naval deployments, with complaints involving food supplies, water, hygiene products, plumbing, and prolonged periods away from port. Family members and service personnel have shared accounts of living conditions across ships and other military branches, describing a recurring pattern of shortages, fatigue, and poor access to basic facilities. The latest allegations were reported by Midas Touch on August 14th. Based on messages from relatives and active duty personnel, the outlet's accounts have not all been independently verified. One service member deployed alongside the USS Abraham Lincoln reportedly told Midas Touch that the reported hardships were real and reflected more than isolated frustrations from a single ship. The same service member reportedly said the issues were not restricted to the USS Abraham Lincoln, suggesting that long deployments and resupply problems may be affecting other units as well. In one message cited by the report, a service member said personnel had not seen land since deploying because of the Iran conflict, illustrating the strain of long stretches without port calls or normal rotation. Another parent said conditions aboard the carrier became progressively worse during their son's deployment, with recurring problems affecting sanitation, water access, food, and basic daily routines. The parent alleged that the ship's water system failed early in the 11-month deployment, leaving sailors unable to shower or wash clothing until the system was restored. Even after the water system was restored, the parent said showers remained tightly rationed, adding to complaints of hygiene problems and declining morale among the crew. Families say supplies repeatedly ran low and conditions worsened when resupply operations and mail deliveries were disrupted, leaving sailors short of food, toiletries, and other essentials. The parent further alleged that toilets backed up and overflowed shortly before their son left the ship, but the Navy has not publicly verified the specific circumstances described in the account. According to the unverified family message, about half a foot of human waste covered the floor of a restroom used by roughly 200 sailors, a claim that illustrates the severity of the reported sanitation crisis. A relative of another sailor claimed crew members had virtually no food, water, or soap, while other reports describe reduced meal portions and shortages of toiletries such as toothpaste, deodorant, and soap. Notably, the USS George H.W. Bush is also deployed in the Middle East as the USS Abraham Lincoln faces reports of extended deployment strain. Sailors seeking clarity from commanding officers have reportedly been told to focus on just today, a response families say has deepened uncertainty about rotation schedules, resupply, and relief plans. Some experienced sailors have reportedly described the deployment as the worst of their careers, pointing to the combination of long shifts, limited rest, supply problems, and prolonged separation from families. Not every account involved naval service, as relatives have also raised concerns about US personnel deployed at bases across the Middle East during the widening regional conflict. One parent reported that their son, who is stationed in Kuwait, was in extremely poor health, though no independently confirmed medical details have been made public. Service members and relatives speaking to Midas Touch urged others to come forward with their own experiences, arguing that wider testimony is needed to force military leaders to address the alleged problems. Taken together, the accounts point to a reported pattern of exhausted troops, dwindling supplies, sanitation issues, and growing morale concerns across extended US deployments linked to the Iran war. USS Abraham Lincoln's 250-day deployment now appears to be colliding with America's Iran blockade, as reports of stretched supplies, limited port calls, and crew welfare concerns draw congressional scrutiny. On August 13th, Pete Hegseth rejected reports of poor conditions aboard USS Abraham Lincoln, insisting the carrier's sailors are receiving all the support the Pentagon can provide. Hegseth also said the US Navy can maintain its blockade of Iranian ports indefinitely, arguing that America can preserve the pressure campaign by rotating ships in and out of the region. Hegseth said, and I quote, "We make sure every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody." What they do in those high seas in those austere conditions with fewer port calls, it's incredible. Indefinitely, the United States Navy can maintain a blockade like that because we'll rotate ships in and out, as we have, and will continue to." Unquote. Notably, the USS Lincoln concern surfaced as the United States is already facing pressure on its wider weapons stockpile after months of operations against Iran. However, US officials, including Hegseth, have dismissed reports of depleted supplies, maintaining that American forces still have the resources needed to sustain the blockade. Interestingly, Washington is preparing to send the USS George Washington to the Middle East, according to the Wall Street Journal. The George Washington is set to replace USS Abraham Lincoln in what officials describe as a previously scheduled rotation, rather than an emergency withdrawal over the reported crew conditions. A US official said the carrier rotation had been planned before concerns over Lincoln's conditions emerged, stressing that the relief operation was already part of normal fleet planning. The change came as Lincoln's prolonged deployment put crew strain under the spotlight, after lawmakers and military families raised concerns over shortages, sanitation, mental health and limited access to port. A violent clash has reportedly erupted aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, with Iranian media claiming that 7 US Navy personnel were killed in the alleged incident. The claim comes from Iranian media, which alleged that the sailors and other personnel were killed during a deadly brawl aboard the American aircraft carrier. Several others were reportedly wounded in the confrontation, according to Iran's Tasnim news agency, which cited an unnamed military source. Tasnim reported that the alleged clash involved US Navy personnel, but the details have not been independently verified. The claim has not been confirmed by the US Navy or US Central Command, leaving key details surrounding the alleged incident unclear. The reported confrontation comes as tensions have been rising aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln following its prolonged deployment and growing concerns over conditions facing its crew. The alleged clash reportedly occurred after CENTCOM advisor boarded the carrier to address complaints raised by sailors and other crew members. According to the report, the CENTCOM official was reportedly booed by members of the crew, with water bottles allegedly thrown during the confrontation. The situation reportedly escalated further, with the confrontation allegedly turning into a physical fight involving knives and other bladed weapons. The reported incident comes after the USS Abraham Lincoln's prolonged deployment, with the carrier having left San Diego on November 21st before being redirected toward the West Asia region. The prolonged deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln has reportedly pushed some sailors to the breaking point after months at sea. Multiple sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln reportedly tried to jump overboard as the carrier's deployment continued. The aircraft carrier's crew has spent 250 consecutive days near Iran without returning to land, intensifying concerns over the strain. Reports describe the deployment as a record for a U.S. aircraft carrier in modern times, highlighting its extraordinary length. The Lincoln left San Diego on November 21st before being redirected toward West Asia as tensions with Iran escalated. Its mission, which is now stretched into a 9th month, was originally expected to end in May but was later extended. The prolonged deployment has raised serious questions about the mental strain facing more than 5,000 sailors and Marines aboard the carrier. Around 200 relatives raised concerns during a San Diego town hall with U.S. Navy officials over the prolonged deployment. Families said the extended mission had severely affected sailors' mental health and placed enormous pressure on those serving at sea. One spouse reportedly told officials that her husband had texted her saying he hoped he would not wake up the following day. Another family member said her husband attempted to go overboard after learning that his already lengthy deployment had been extended. A different sailor's wife reportedly said her husband intervened to stop a fellow crew member from going overboard.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.